Are you ready for next interview question?
Yes, sir.
Then tell me, what is critical rendering path?
Let me try to remember YouTube video on this topic.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on this channel. So in today's video we are going to cover a front-end interview question on critical rendering path. So the question is pretty basic, which is what is critical rendering path exactly? Now most of us know a few steps about it, but a lot of us don't know that what exactly are the complete steps in critical rendering path and how to view them in the browser. So that is what I'm planning to cover in today's video. So critical rendering path definition is simple. It's a sequence of steps that the browser takes to convert the HTML, CSS and JavaScript that we push into the browser into pixels that needs to be shown on the screen. So basically it's a process which takes all these three types of code, combines them properly and generates an internal overview or internal processes by which in the actual data or the output is shown on the screen. Just like we run different programs in C++ or let's just say Java, we compile them and then we show the output to the end user. Similarly, the browser takes these three types of code, combines them, and the compiled output is then shown into pixels on the screen. Now, goal of this process of or all these internal steps is to make sure that the page is loaded as fast as possible and the all these three types of code are generated and rendered onto the screen in as optimized way as possible. Now, this is a continuous evolving process, and browsers have been internally evolving to make these processes as faster and optimized as possible as the complexity of the apps goes on increasing and as the depth to which we add the code into, especially in the JavaScript that needs to be handled on the browser. So they are increasingly allowing to take a good advantage of the hardware available, the latest hardware available, the latest software available on the OS side and the hardware side to render the websites properly and more in more dynamic way as possible. And that's the entire process of the critical rendering path. Now coming to the steps which are present in CRPR, the first thing that the browser does is it takes the HTML and creates a document object model, which most of us as web developers are aware. Now, document object model is basically the internal tree representation which is used by the browser to convert the HTML that we send into the tree that can be internally processed and shown into the web page. The second tree that some of us don't know is CSS object model tree. So basically when we send CSS to the browser, it is also internally converted into a tree, and that tree is called as CSS object model, and even that tree is used by the browser to apply the styling which are present into the HTML or the HTML element, the styling that it needs to be applied that is generated using CSS object model. The next step that the browser does is creation of render tree. Now, what is render tree? Is that we take the DOM and we take the CSS object model and we combine those three and we generate a render tree. Now, I have covered a video on render trees or article, and that you can refer to understand what is render tree exactly. And that render tree allows the browser to combine the document object model and CSS object model to convert the base element that can be shown to the end user onto the screen. So this is a combined output of HTML and the styles, and they are combined together for a particular element, and a host of these elements are combined to form a tree, and that tree constitutes render tree. Once the render tree is generated, the layout calculation happens. So on this layout calculation, it determines the position and the sizes of the elements. So you have some position defined as per the HTML hierarchy, as per the CSS properties. So all those positions that needs to be shown into the browser, those are calculated, and the sizes are calculated by the browser. For example, if you see this image, it is positioned onto the right side and has some width and height, right? So the exact position on which it needs to be shown and the exact width and height that it needs to have, that is being calculated by the layout calculation process. Now the next thing is the painting cycle, which is to actually paint or to show the output to the end user onto the browser screen. So the painting happens and the different colors or all the pixels are painted and those are shown into the monitor of the user or the mobile screen of the user. Compositing is the final rendering adjustments which happen dynamically as the page updates. Now, when the interviewer asks this question, you can stop here as well. But if you want to go into a little bit depth and create a better impression on the interviewer, in that case, what you can do is, let's just say you have a virtual interview or you have an in-person interview and you have a laptop with you. Just jump into the browser and just open a simple page like Wikipedia is recommended. Go to the developer tools and go to the performance tab, and here click reload. So this will like profile the page and it will show some interesting things which you can then use to explain the actual process that happens in critical rendering path. Now, if you go here, you will see the actual rendering time that took. So these are the steps which we just talk about, right? So you can tell to the interviewer, okay, this is where the rendering is happening. This is how much time it takes to render. The scripting, the loading, the painting cycle, everything is present here. So this creates a better impression onto the interviewer side that, hey, okay, he has not just mugged up some concepts, but he actually knows, he or she knows that this is where the thing actually are, and he or she has internally assimilated that knowledge into the depth that this is where all the processes are happening. So this is a practical overview, and it's always recommended that whenever you are asked some basic questions, make sure to have a in-depth knowledge so that you score some positive points or know that okay, this candidate is a strong candidate who has knowledge of internals of browser, not just theoretical concepts. Now, if you go to the bottom of tree, you will see all the steps that we just saw. So this is the parse HTML step in which the HTML object model is created, the compile code for the compilation of JavaScript code, then the prepaint cycle where the painting happens, which we just saw. This is the painting cycle, and in that painting cycle, you can just go ahead and see all the time that it took, right? So you can show this to the interviewer. Now expect some advanced question on this, but it's a good thing. Like open that box and let the interviewer uh, take into consideration that okay, at least he knows these things. Then in the event log, you can check for the events as well. So this is the rendering that we talked about, right? The next thing that you can do is you can go to the more tools section, and in the more tools section there is something called as rendering, and you can click on paint flashing, layout shift, layout borders, and frame rendering stats. So basically these are the stats of the actual frame rate that is present into the browser. When you hover over something, this will show the uh, paint flashing or the actual paint that is getting updated or highlighted, and this is the thing that is happening internally. So you can show the interior that this is how the rendering or the paint flashing happens, and then the layout borders can be shown as well. So paint flashing is basically all these steps that you can see. So whenever you are showcasing these skills, always go to incognito mode where there are no plugins like enabled. That way you will be able to actually show the metrics that are actually working or optimizing or blocking the rendering of the page rather than, let's just say, some performance decrements because of the plugin itself. So yeah, that was a simple short video on CRP. So thank you for watching the video till now. If you found this content useful, then consider liking the video. Subscribe to the channel for more such content in future. And yeah, thank you and have a nice day ahead. Goodbye.
Why did the critical rendering path go to therapy? Because it had too many blocking issues and couldn't handle the load. Follow for more such content.